Hey everybody, I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our advanced writing on shades of meaning, right? So, advanced writing on shades of meaning for specifically high school, but we're going to be focusing on the tutorial lesson on grade 8. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts. And then we're going to grade 8. So this is high school. However, we are going to do the tutorial lesson under the grade 8 chapter. So once you have selected, let's say grade 8, you're going to scroll down up until you get to the chapter of shades of meaning. All right. So we said our chapter it's basically advanced writing, which is shades of meaning. The subject is English language arts. The grade is actually grade 8, but a high school. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of advanced writing shades of meaning is to describe the difference between related words as well as positive and negative connotation. So that is basically going to be our lessons under the chapter of shades of meaning. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. All right, so when it comes to shades of meaning, right? Then many words they are similar but subtle differences in meaning. So the words may be similar, but then subtly there may be differences in meaning, right? And you can think of all the differences of shades of meaning. So we said this is advanced writing, shades of meaning. And many words are similar, but we see that they have subtle differences in meaning, right? For example, think about words that is acquaintance, friend, or confidant, right? So an acquaintance is a person that you know casually. So an acquaintance is somebody that you just know casually, right? So you only know them casually. Then we have a friend, right? And a friend is a person that is more close, that is has a positive relationship with you, or that you have a positive relationship with. So we say a friend, it's a person you are close and have a positive relationship with. And then we have a confidant, right? Which is especially a very close friend that you share secrets with. So this is but one example of, let's say, shades of meaning, right? Which is acquaintance, friend, and confidant. They are basically within a group, right? It's like if we were to group them. So also with shades of meaning, there are different or many other words, right, that have that are similar, but they have subtle differences within the meaning of whatever that they are doing as well as what they are saying, right? So we say that an acquaintance is a person that you know casually, right? It's basically just a casual, usually it's your colleagues are also acquaintances, right? So sometimes we tend to say my friend, but not everybody is your friend, right? So an acquaintance, friend, and confidant, right? If we were to like group them, and then we can say all name relationships between people. That is how we basically classify them into groups where they all three, which is the acquaintance, the friend, as well as the confidant, right? They're all name relationships between people, but each one of them, they basically suggest a different type of relationship. And when you write, right, you need to consider the different shades of meaning between words. And choosing a word that is more precise and descriptive, like confident instead of a friend, can help you to express your ideas more clearly and accurately. All right. So, with shades of meaning, right, as much as we can group these words, right, put it in order, we need to consider the shades and the meaning between a few of these things, right? And choosing a word that is more precise or descriptive. All right. With shades of meaning also, right? You get, let's say, positive connotation and you get negative connotation, right? And negative connotation we call denotation. And it is a literal meaning of a word that can be found in a dictionary. So it's denotation. So we say that there's a negative connotation and has a positive connotation. And we said negative connotation we call denotation, whereas a positive connotation we call connotations. And we say that connotations is the feeling or idea that goes along with a word, right? It's like being trustworthy. It's like saying something and meaning it. All right, so we say that we are doing our lessons on aplusstudents.ca. All right, so now we see that we're doing shades of meaning and we're going to describe the difference between related words. So when it comes to shades of meaning, right? Many words are similar, but we see that they have subtle meaning, or let's say differences in meaning, right? And if we look at an example that is given from their side, it is acquaintance, friend, and confidant, right? So which means that it is different words, however, they are similar, but the all right, so we see that we made an example of the word acquaintance, friend, and confident. And I actually feel like using or making use of the word or examples of the word friend, confidant, as well as acquaintance is actually a very good way of a good example to show, especially since all of us say whether it's your colleague, whether it is a friend, or not even a specific friend, but a colleague or someone that you are maybe close with, then we call those people a friend, right? And remember, when it comes to the words such as friend, acquaintance, as well as confidant, right? You need to also know the differences between those words so that you'll be able to know when and how, in which context to use it, right? All right. And also when it comes to acquaintance, right? Acquaintance is just more like we are working together, we are walking together, we are talking, but we are not close. We cannot share anything. Whereas I would say friend and acquaintance is more, friend and confidant is more close to one another in the sense of definition. Um, and we said an acquaintance is a person you know more casually. Not acquaintance, a friend is someone or it's a person you have a close and positive relationship with. And a confidant, especially friends who share secrets with one another. All right, so if somebody mentions a person's shape, right? So if somebody were to say, specifically talk about the person's shape, or they were to talk about building, right? Not building, but build, all right? Sometimes people use the word shape. They use the word shape, or they use the word build. And these are two words that can mean or have something to do with weight, right? Meaning that you are shaped a certain way, you are built a certain way, and built is usually for people who are slightly, not, I'm not saying that they are, but they are slightly overweight, or let's say big built. Let's rather use that word. Right? So we can say this is more when somebody makes mention of shape or bulk, it is more for somebody that is a bit bigger in size and weight. So this is size and weight. So when somebody makes mention either of shape or they make mention of bold, when they talk about either something, and then it can be to do um with weight. But when it also comes to the shades of meaning, the different meanings, it is also important to know proper information. All right. So now we are going to our test. So when you look at um also shades of meanings, right? Shades of meanings is where you have basically two or more words where the wording are the same, but there are subtle differences in the meanings of these specific words, right? Like, for example, a response or a retort, right? So, which is more argumentative, right? Where you'll be more arguing than just responding or having a proper conversation. Is it when we have a response or when we're having a retort? So, which one is more argumentative? Is it a response or is it a retort? So, a response is, of course, where um, you have a conversation with someone and the person responds in that manner. And a retort is where you say something and you're making like silly remarks, right? It's usually remarks that is typically sharp angry, with an attitude, and with a specific bad manner, right? So, which is more argumentative? So we can then say a retort is more argumentative. So which is more forceful? Is it a request or a demand? A request or a demand? So which is more forceful? A request or a demand? So remember, if we put in a request, right? A request sometimes is basically just where you say that you want to do something. It is sometimes requests can also be almost like a form of reminder, right? It's like you're asking politely, right, for something, and that is basically a request, right? Whereas a demand is where it is more forceful, right? It's like you're demanding somebody to do something. You're not asking. So now, which refers to a person's shape? And this is an example I made earlier on to talk about shape or build. So, which word refers to a person's shape? Is it your posture or is it your build? So, which refers to a person's shape? The posture or build? So, if we look at the person's shape, this, okay, with a person's shape, right? Posture is usually the way you sit, the way you stand, right? But shape, I think it's more to do with how you are built in size. Yes. So it's how you're built in size, weight, and so on. And which word is more general? Is a communication more general or a conversation more general? So is communicate more general or conversation more general? All right. So which one is more general? Usually conversation is more general. That is why they call it a general conversation. Oh, communication is more general because the conversation is more like a specific thing, right? So, which word describes someone who is awkwardly tall and thin? Are they slender when they're awkwardly tall and thin, or are they lanky? So, which word describes someone who is awkwardly tall and thin? So, slender is, of course, when somebody is, let's say, a bit thin. However, lanky is when somebody is ungracefully thin and tall, right? So we can say somebody who's awfully or ungracefully tall and thin, that is lanky. So lanky is when someone is awkwardly tall and when they are thin. Now we're going on to positive and negative connotations. We see that we have positive as well as negative connotations, and the negative connotation we call denotation, which is a literal meaning of a word that can be found within a dictionary, right? And a connotation is the feeling or idea that goes along with a word. So many words with similar denotations have different connotations, right? For example, think about the word frugal and miserly. So frugal and miserly both denote tending to saving money, but frugal has more positive connotation and suggests a person is careful with money, while miserly has a more negative connotation and suggests a person is cheap or stingy, right? And to make appropriate word choices, you must also consider more than just the word denotation, because choosing a word with a different connotation can convey the same kind of information while creating a different mood or tone. All right. So it's like they were saying, we might just choose words, right? But then sometimes words can either have like negative connotations to it, whereas we might just think that it will be about, or it will be a, let's say, a positive connotation to it, right? All right, so now we need to say which phrase has a more positive connotation. Is it an inquisitive person? An inquisitive person, we can say, is a more, it's more positive connotation, because an inquisitive person has more positive connotations, right? A nosy person is where it is a denotation, right? It is more negative, because a nosy person likes to gossip, they want to be all up in people's business, right? And nothing will stop them from creating stories in order to know more stories. Whereas an inquisitive person has a positive connotation. All right. So we need to say which phrase has a more negative connotation to it. It's a company's soil, right? So a company's spoil has a more negative connotation. Spoils and profits both denote material gains. However, spoil suggests things of value that were unfairly taken from others, while profit suggests money that was earned. Right? So definitely profit is um all right, so now which phrase has a more positive connotation? Is it a resolute attitude or a willful attitude? All right, so when it comes to a resolute attitude, right? And a resolute attitude has more positive connotation than a willful attitude, right? So resolute and willful both denote being determined. However, resolute suggests acting with conviction and dedication, while willful just suggests that you are being disobedient. So resolute attitude. So now let's go to our test. So which phrase has a more positive connotation? Is it a stingy person or a thrifty person that has a more positive connotation to it? Is it a stingy person or a thrifty person? So the phrase that has a more positive connotation to it. So when it comes to the phrase that is more, let's say, positive, and then we can say it is a thrifty person. Because a stingy person is a person who is more close hand or close handed than a thrifty person. So stingy people, that is a negative connotation. So each phrase has a more negative connotation, either to exploit something or to use something. So the phrase that has a more negative connotation between these two, we would say it is when somebody is being exploited, right? Because to use someone is not as bad as exploiting someone. So which phrase has a more positive connotation between a willful attitude and a resolute attitude? And we see that both willful attitude and resolute has both positive connotations, right? But willful is where you just, disobedient, or you're just obedient and just follow whatever you need to do, whereas resolute is where you are more determined, right? So a resolute attitude. And which phrase has a more negative connotation? Is it an employee or an underling? So an underling. Never heard of an underling. Oh, an underling is a person lower in status or rank. So which means that the someone who has more of a negative connotation, we would say it is an underling. Because an employee, it's like where you are employed at the workplace, right? But an underling, if you use the word underling, then it is like basically just making mention of the position that the person is doing, especially if it's a lower rank. And which phrase has a more positive connotation? Is it a nosy person or in an inquisitive person? And a nosy person, that is a negative connotation because nosy people might just want to be all up in people's business by either sharing or oversharing false information to gain information. So we will say the positive connotation is an inquisitive person. So which phrase is more positive? Is it an in put is it a particular person? No, peculiar person. Or is it a unique person? So positive person is more of a, let's say, unique, because peculiar is telling us it's more expected to be strange, but also special. Let's try unique. So a unique person is more or has more of a positive connotation to it. And which phrase has more of a negative connotation? Is it a company's spoils or a company's profits? And remember, a company's spoils, it's basically almost like a loss. So it's like a loss, whereas a company's profits is where they are gaining, right? That's where they gain. You either gain financially, right? You're making a profit. So which phrase has a more positive connotation? Is it a sneaker or a chuckle? So a sneaker or a chuckle. And a sneaker is somebody who gives a half suppressed, typically scornful laugh, right? Whereas a chuckle, it's like where there's a quiet and suppressed laugh. It's like inwardly you laugh. So I assume chuckle is the positive one. It's like we're laughing inwardly and quietly. Yeah, so chuckle is the positive connotation. And then which phrase has a more negative connotation? Is it a stench or an odor? A stench or an odor. And the difference between a stench and an odor, right, is where an odor has a more distinctive smell, right? It is very, it does have a unpleasant smell or unpleasant smell to it. Um, Whereas a stench has got a very bad, has got a very bad and unpleasant and a strong smell to it, right? It's like a rotting fish smell. So I assume that the negative connotation of these two words or phrases, I would say, is a stench. Because a stench has got a more stronger smell than just an odor where you just have a certain smell. All right. So we need to describe the difference. So what we did was, we did for today's lesson, we did shades of meaning, right? And we said with shades of meaning, we have certain words that are kind of similar, but we have subtle differences in meanings, right? And then we also have words that are subtly the same, but it either some words has a positive connotation to it, and certain words has a negative connotation to it, right? But it subtly means the same thing, right? It's like if you look at the definitions of those two words, then you would say that the words are subtly the same. But some has a positive connotation to it, and some has a negative connotation to specific words, right? And also with related words, we specifically, or shades of word, we specifically made examples of all right. Also, if we look at, we made an example earlier. I'm just quickly going to go back. All right. This is now when it comes to shades of meaning. And we were specifically talking about having two or three different types of words, right? But the meaning being slightly different, right? And we made an example of acquaintance, friend, and confidant. And this is basically shades of meaning. And that is why we were saying that even with shades of meaning, you can have a positive connotation to it, and you can have a negative connotation to certain words, right? But of course, in this word, these words that we're going to be mentioning, which is acquaintance, friend, and confidence, right? All three of these words do have positive connotations. However, acquaintance as a more, it's like we are known to be more casual as friends, right? Or not even as friends. It is just that you know somebody more casually. And like I said earlier on, you cannot call your colleague a friend, right? Knowing that you both of you just come to work every single day and you experience conflict, and you basically just met there and you don't even know how to deal with proper conflict, right? So which means that there are certain people that you're gonna have to let's say just call an acquaintance. Then of course you'll have your friends, which is people that is more close to you and you have a more positive relationship with. And then you have those who you call a confidant, right? It's where people you share secrets with. You go more deeper in conversation, more deeper in um meetups that you guys also have, right? So basically when it comes to the words acquaintance, friend, and confidence, right? These are relationships of between people. It's relationships between people, and it suggests that there's different relationship types, right? So it is relationships, but it also suggests that there are different relationship types. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on shades of meaning. Thank you very much for joining the class, and I really hope you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.